Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Mad Scientist Kyle. I'm here with Mike and Zach. What's up, guys?
Hold up. You're going to have to duck down a little bit. They can't see your hair.
Yeah, so it's not even the headphones are suppressing it. It's a federal holiday, so it's also like a shower holiday. This is what my hair looks like when I wake up. So I started the cast wearing a hat, and Mike was like, "What are you doing? Did you shave your head or something?" So here, this is the full.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go. That's the Mad Scientist. That's where this reference is coming from.
Yeah.
I'm totally referring to you as Doc Brown the entire episode. I'm not saying Kyle once. I'm saying Doc Brown the entire time.
Yeah, there you go. If I gelled it like that, it can get pretty vertical. I've done that in the past for Halloween costume purposes. But yeah. Anyway, enough about my hair. Let's talk Legion. So do we have any housekeeping, Mike?
We do not have any housekeeping that I am aware of. I know Jay released a new How to Legion video this week. So check that out if you're new to Legion. But outside of that, I don't think we've got anything pressing.
Cool. Check out our Patreon if you want to support us, thefifthtrooper.com/Patreon, right?
I'm pretty sure it's patreon.com/thefifthtrooper.
Okay, I was close. See, this is why I don't do housekeeping. Yeah, check it out if you want to support us, or the blog, or the other podcasts. This is plural. Anyway. All right, let's move on to...
You could find the link to our Patreon on thefifthtrooper.com.
Yes, there you go. Okay, let's hit news real quick, because there is one small news item.
Welcome to In the News.
So the quick news item I want to hit is basically that Nova Open has not exactly been canceled, but it's kind of been canceled. It's not super clear, precisely what is meant by this message, but they basically sent something out that said, basically because of the pandemic. And then here's the interesting part. The executive board decided that planning a full-sized Nova Open in 2021 is not a good use of valuable time. Instead, the executive board is turning its attention to creating a, quote, different Nova Open which addresses the community's needs and wants while recognizing the realities of the pandemic. And then they go on to say, we've got our fingers crossed and our eyes set on September 1st. You can register, and here's a registration date. So it's not really clear to me what that means. To me, that says either online like Gen Con did, or even some kind of invitational or something, which I assume would probably just be 40K because that's their primary thing at Nova Open.
I mean, for us Legionnaires, the Star Wars Legion is a very small tournament there compared to everything else. I mean, clearly 40K takes the cake, but even compared to X-Wing and stuff, Legion draws a pretty... not a small crowd. It's a decent event. But
yeah, it's a national, so it's 64. But yeah, the 40K event is 500 or something ridiculous like that. So
yeah, I imagine they'll prioritize those types of things. But I don't know. This is pretty vague, so it's kind of a question mark. I do think that it kind of underscores the messaging that we've received from AMG regarding organized play and how they're hesitant to kind of move forward with it this year and things like that. So to me, this is kind of just a reinforcement that we probably won't see organized play open up in real life until probably next year.
Yeah, I mean, another thing is they probably don't want to deal with stuff that they dealt with last year too, right? I think a lot of the big cons had to kind of wait until last minute to cancel because of insurance reasonings, right? So they'd be tying up a lot of people's money basically until the very last minute. So it's a complicated situation. it's only February, so it's like when you first mentioned it to me, Kyle, I was like, "Ooh, it's a little early to kind of cancel it," just because we're heading the right direction, or at least it feels like we might be heading the right direction, right? But I also respect that they're taking like precaution too. So I think that this is just normal right now, and we need to accept that, and just we'll get a tournament eventually, right? Like it'll come. We're getting to that point at some point. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like I say that every episode now. But if it's not the Nova Open, it'll be something else. That's just how it has to be for everyone's safety, right?
Yeah, it's perfectly sensible, right? Like if there's a good chance that it's going to get canceled anyway. Like planning a convention is a lot of work. Like you said, you tie up everyone's money that signs up for that time period. You got to book space. It's a ton of effort to go into something that may or may not happen. And I totally get where they're coming from, where they're like, let's just figure out a way to proactively assume that we're not going to be able to do, a full blown quote unquote normal Nova Open. And I don't know exactly what they have in mind, but it sounds like they're either going to do some sort of reduced size pared down thing or some kind of online thing or some combination. So anyway, excited for whatever that is. Sad that COVID is still around, but it is, and that's the reality. So yeah, we'll get to do a Legion convention tournament again sometime. I'll be there whenever that is. And
like literally, I don't care where it is. It could be like in the back alley of like some shady city. I'm not going to try and point blank any city, and I'd still go there right now.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Like you say that, but like I don't know.
Mike, you would do it. We have an addiction to this game.
No, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. While yes, I love this game, and I'm not going to sacrifice my health and my body for it.
Well, let's assume that that whatever the first con is essentially like appropriately timed. Let's say.
I mean, like, I wouldn't stay in like a crappy hotel and then like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not gonna be that though.
Like that,
Yeah.
Totally. I just like that's what you guys are attempting to say, right? Like
I will play in the streets of Baltimore. That's how bad I want to play.
Hey, Baltimore's great.
Yeah,
Come on.
Baltimore is great. Don't hate on Baltimore. Haven't you seen The Expanse?
Haven't you seen The Wire?
Neither of those were filmed at the National Harbor, or not the National Harbor. That's not even in Baltimore. The Baltimore Harbor.
Baltimore Harbor is nice. I like
National
Baltimore
Harbor is actually in the other direction.
But it is still in Maryland, at least.
Yeah, I guess. It's sort of in Maryland.
Yeah. Look, it's not like I don't live 40 minutes from it. Anyway. Yeah, that's news. So we've got sort of a two-part topic today that's related. Let's hit our tactics section.
Get ready for advanced tactics.
So last week we talked about Rebel Corps. This week we're going to talk about Empire Corps. And I know this is a hot topic in the competitive community. Some people would simply say Empire Corps is bad.
And they would be very wrong.
Yeah.
As the Imperial player in the room.
Yeah. So this the reason this will be a two-part is the first part is going to be discussing Empire Corps, and the second part is going to be basically discussing maybe some outside the box ideas for some competitive Empire lists. Let's hit Empire Corps first.
Yeah. I mean, just for like clarification, like this is like a discussion we had earlier in like amongst ourselves, and we're like, this is a good discussion. Let's pop this in with our chat. And it goes hand in hand somewhat. And Mike probably will be the one that can, convey that message better. But yeah, let's hit the core first.
So I want to do Stormtroopers last.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
100%. I agree with that.
So why don't we start with Snowtroopers? So two-part question. A, are you taking them? B, how many of, in what, C, in what kind of list? And D, what equipment are you putting on them?
So that was like a 4-part question.
I know. Yeah. Let's start with A. Are you taking them, and in what context?
I think snows are actually better than people give them credit for. I think steady is still a very good keyword. A double move shoot with the Snowtrooper is obviously a little bit further than a speed 2 move, so you have a little more room for error. The reason why I would consider taking them is honestly because of hostage exchange, if I'm being honest, because of action economy. And what I mean by that is if you're playing hostage with with snows, is you can move twice and you can take a pot shot. And a turn 1 shot from your hostage carrier is actually kind of big. Because you're typically in hostage exchange, right? And I know this is a very specific niche case, right? But in hostage exchange, the battle's usually right towards the middle, as you guys know from your game, right? And there's usually units. Yeah, but what my point is, like, usually there's units for you to shoot, right? And what I mean, and what I think the most important thing about snows in a list, if you were to bring them in specifically on hostage, I know it's still niche, is your opponent actually has to kind of think how they deploy a little bit differently. Because if they leave a unit exposed, those snows can take a shot at them. And that's very important. Like, if you're in a close engagement and like you have strike teams, but like those snows can like double move and like get both models, which you really shouldn't be letting your opponent do, number one. But if it is the case, right, that's happening, you're now allowing your opponent to shoot your snipers, potentially kill those snipers and take the points lead and then run away with their hostage, right? And you want to try and avoid that situation. I just think snows can kind of put more thought process on your opponent. I do think that they are fine as a 1 or 2 of in certain lists. I'm not saying like every list should be taking snows, but I do think that there is a case for them. If I were to take them, believe it or not, I probably would take the ion gun. I know that sounds crazy, but I just don't. I think the flamethrower puts you in the wrong mindset. It makes you want to play aggro with them and get into positions that they necessarily don't want to be in this type of environment. The other case would be to take them naked and bring them straight up as like a hostage or like hostage insurance, basically. But I do think there's a better case for snows than, say, last week we talked about fleets, right? And I know the comparison gets made because they're similar units, but that's where my mind goes with it.
I think all of that is fair. So I will say, as we start the Imperial Core discussion, I do think snows are significantly behind the other 2 choices, or
totally
3 choices.
No, totally agree.
I think, interestingly enough, I don't like snows in the hostage situation that you were describing, specifically because they are slow, and if they get suppressed, you're moving even slower.
Well, they're moving the same speed you would with the hostage, anyways.
I understand.
They are able to shoot after the second move.
When I say slow, what I mean is they're not moving speed 2; they're moving speed 1. I mean, like with the hostage, there's still speed 1, but I don't know.
I'm just thinking action economy on top of those speed 1 moves.
I feel
really,
you. Yeah. I don't know. I suppose it's a little defensible. I still think that you blaring the flamer and frag grenades, if that's what you're trying to do, is target hostage exchange, and to be honest, I'm not sure hostage should even go in Imperial decks, but if you are going to target hostage exchange with Snowtroopers, I think that you go all in with the flamer and the frag grenade and try and hit something with your invulnerable shield turn 1 and really dice them. If that's the reason you're bringing Snowtroopers, I don't think it's. I'm not saying that that's a good thing to do. I just I think Snowtroopers are always a one of. And basically, if you're going to take Snowtroopers, they are a one of. I think that they are uniquely suited to lists that include Palp, because you can do a double tap thing and really you know, get the flamer going. I think that you really, I don't know. To me, the issue with Snowtroopers has always been suppression and their ability to get on target. And I think that right now, like, Snowtrooper officers is a thing you could do. It's really expensive. It's like too expensive, I think.
It feels bad. It feels bad on paper.
Yeah. So I'm more in the, if you're gonna run Snowtroopers, run them lean, keep them behind cover until they're kind of like a mini linebacker unit that blows something up if it gets close. And I think that's why you should not only bring the flamer but bring frag grenades as well, because if so that they can deal with large group of units, like a large unit, or they can deal with like a Luke Skywalker or whatever and just toss 5 red into them with steady, you know. But overall, I think that the Snowtrooper is leaning into something that the Empire has been traditionally not so great at, in that it's like close range, and most Empire lists are trying to keep their distance, frankly. For the most part. And I think because it doesn't really thread with what we see Imperials doing more commonly these days, and I think the Snowtrooper just doesn't fit that as well. That's just me.
So I agree with a significant portion of what you guys have said. I think that snows are basically Vader Palp only. I actually think they're fantastic in a Palp list. I would personally take the Flamer. I know that some people specifically have had success with the Ion. I don't know what his round robin group makeup is, but the Ion seems positively useless if you're not facing droids or vehicles.
I mean, if you're playing against droids, it's really good. Right? Like
clearly.
it is exceptional if you're playing against droids. But if you're playing against anything else, it feels maybe not so good.
Yeah, even against vehicles, like you still have to actually wound the vehicle to get the Ion token on there, which is, you know, the dice on that thing are garbage. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fundamental issue with Ion.
Yeah, anyway, this is not a topic about Ion. Personally, I also like the Flamer frag combo. I think you could make an argument for Flamer Ion grenades or Flamer impact grenades just because they're cheaper now. Like, those grenades are dirt cheap. And the frags, at least if you're blasting like a multi-model trooper unit, the frags are usually overkill. But it is nice for those situations where you're trying to slap a single model, you know, and then it's 5 reds instead of like 5 blacks or whatever, which does make a pretty big difference. I agree and disagree about Hostage. I think they are great on Hostage, but not as the Hostage unit. And specifically only in a Palpatine list. They are the unit that you want to blow up your opponent's Hostage on turn 2 when you play Give Into Your Anger. And if you're going to do that with them, you know, your Hostage, ideally, if you're running away with them, which you should be, they should already be further than range 1 away from your opponent's Hostage at the start of turn 2. So you want your Snowtroopers to be the ones that you're kind of like shoving into your opponent's Hostage while you have, you know, a naked Stormtrooper or whatever being the ones that run away with the Hostage. Yeah, they're the same speed. Yeah, the Snows get a free shot when they take those 2 speed 1 moves, but it's probably going to be a range 3 shot, and it's probably just going to be crit fishing with white dice. So at least for me personally, you know, if you're playing Snows, you're probably playing Palp, and if you're playing Palp, you're playing Give Into Your Anger at the start of turn 2 to blow your opponent's Hostage up, and you want to do that with the Snows or with Guard, which means that your Hostage unit should be something else. So, yeah, I think that kind of sums up my thoughts about them. I do think you could actually take 2 in a Palp list with the right setup. I actually played Luke in a practice game like a week ago. The list he ran was actually illegal. Neither of us realized it, but he had 7 core in it. So maybe it's not the best example.
Not realize that?
I don't know. It was just like, it was a practice game. Neither of us realized
I'm going to say that once again. How the hell do you not realize that?
I don't know. You know, it was Pelp, 2 Snows, 2 Shores, 2 Mortars, and a Stormtrooper with a medic and then roll a guard. So I don't know. Neither of us really. Dude, I'm in like a fog right now. I gotta be honest. With just life in general. So my Legion games are like kind of autopilot, especially my practice games. I gotta get back in the zone. But yes, he didn't realize it either. So at least it's not, anyway, I think you could make it was pretty good. You could take 2 snows with Palp, and especially against droids, that would be a very defensible choice.
Yeah, I mean, pull the strings on snows has always been good.
It's amazing. Yeah,
it's the action economy on it is just ridiculous. Like, it really is.
There's one cute before I forget talk about one cute little trick with a snow flamer, which is the peekaboo leader no sight, no cover shot with the flamethrower. So you actually can shoot something, and this goes for all units, not just snows clearly, but your unit leader does not need to have line of sight to your target to shoot them. The which models can contribute dice thing is like separate and apart from the choosing a target step. So generally speaking, if your unit leader can't see any models in the target unit, they automatically have a heavy cover. But of course, the flamer has blast. So sometimes you can get a little bit extra range by and I mean like lateral range, not forward range, because clearly you can't go here forward to get extra weapon range. But you can basically like move your unit leader, behind a line of sight block, or throw your guys around the side so that they can see your target, blast them with the flamethrower and the frag grenades. They don't get cover because of the flamethrower, even though your unit leader can't see, and then you swing them back behind that line of sight blocking piece of terrain. So classic Snowtrooper little trick. Anyway, sorry, Mike. Go ahead and hopefully I didn't make you forget what you were going to say.
I don't remember what I was going to say.
Dang it.
I don't know. Nope.
Sorry.
You're good. It's fine.
Okay.
It was not super important.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I got for snows. So basically the TLDR there is Palp Vader only, probably you probably want the flamer. If you're going to do some kind of crazy ion build, it can be effective, but if you're not playing against droids, you're going to be sad.
Yeah, and I mean, I think shorthand here really is, unless you really want to play them or you have a really good reason, you should probably avoid them entirely. Like, I don't want to make the theme here like writing units off, because that's not what we're trying to do. But I do think that in this slot, very similarly to Fleet Troopers, but probably a step up, Snowtroopers are kind of in that same like super niche, probably,
They're a unit that takes practice to understand how they fit in the list, where they fit in the list, how to play them they're a unit that takes time to understand. But essentially, yeah, I understand. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, we're not saying to throw them in the trash. Like,
I guess what I'm saying is, like, the first time you build a list, you shouldn't include a Snowtrooper in it. It's more something like you play a list a couple of times and are like, I need this like sauce. I need a little bit more oomph, or I need something specific that the Snowtrooper like fills that niche, and you put them in later. I would just say, build your Empire list with the other Imperial Corps, and if you feel like you're missing something, try out the Snowtrooper in as a one-of slot and see if that fixes the problem. But I think overall you should probably start elsewhere.
Yep. I do think they're better than fleets.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely better than fleets. If that came out wrong, I'm sorry. I was trying to say that they were a step up from fleets.
Yeah. I mean, steady's just really good. I mean,
it is. Steady's a great keyword. So before we move on real quick, I want to throw one thing at you guys. What do you think of Gideon in a snow unit?
The dice aren't good enough, I don't think, to justify the cost. He's 38 points.
Yeah, Gideon it's an 82-point unit.
That's a lot, in my opinion.
In contrast, the Flamer Frag version.
I mean, I could see maybe doing it if you have like a core-centric list and coordinate daisy chains some stuff, right? But like, I just don't think Gideon is worth 38 points. If I'm just being blunt about it.
I will agree with that.
I'm just being blunt.
I think that where we are in the game right now, it's pretty clear that Dell and Gideon are overcosted in comparison to
Echo and Fives. Yeah.
I mean, like that's the easy junction to make. But I would argue that the Gideon and Dell are even overcosted in Inferno Squad. Like the fact that no one is playing Inferno Squad, I think is something else altogether. But I do think that it speaks to the fact that just those upgrades seem to be maybe a little bit more than they should be. I guess to your point, Kyle, about Gideon and Snowtroopers, I think if he was like on cost with a flamer, I still would probably take the flamer. Frankly, I think you lose a lot of the coordinate, right? Because he's got coordinate.
Do you gain an extra? Do you gain an extra? Do you go to
courage
too?
Yeah, it's courage too.
You do.
Yeah.
Which is
and
not
an
nothing,
extra wound.
Which is not nothing. The extra wound is, but
yeah.
I don't know. I think he turns the Snow Squad into a DLT squad with steady, which is like fine, but like for the points you're paying for it, just take a DLT.
Yeah, because you're losing the impact, which is really I'm not saying that's important.
It's the range.
It's just a question of.
It could be.
And that also. It's just a question of how important steady is to you. Because I've always personally felt like if you could just give Snows a DLT, they would be ridiculous. But clearly Gideon is. Just because steady is such a good keyword.
I mean, if you could give Snows a DLT at 68 points.
Yeah,
like it would be really good. But like.
Yeah,
that's not. It's what? It's much more. It's like 40.
It's 82.
Yeah, it's not close.
It sounds like kind of ridiculous, but like it feels like Dell and Gideon are kind of like lacking like sharpshooter, because their dice pools are so small for the price points that they're given to go onto the units they go to.
Well, the issue is that sharpshooter is a unit keyword as opposed.
Well, that too. Like you can't put it on like a weapon or an add-on, so like you can't. Like I understand that, but like I'm saying, that's what it feels like they're lacking.
Well, it's because the unit you normally put them on has marksman, and marksman and sharpshooter is not a thing that currently exists. So
totally.
Well, it is if they're
together.
An Inferno Squad, right? Like Well, I guess marksman and there's no sharpshooter.
Together, they don't exist together because marksman just gives you the crits. So,
but yeah, I bet to the point, it's just 38 points is a lot to do that. I think.
Yeah, it's. So maybe interesting, probably too expensive is the TLDR there.
Yeah, I will say that if I were to this is like super theory crafting, I would never really talk about this on the cast except for like sort of talking about it. I would never bring this up myself, but I think Dell is a better choice in a Snow Squad than Gideon.
Because you have a sniper with peekaboo, basically.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, I don't think it's very good, but like if I was gonna pick one of them, it would probably be Dell, and it would be in some sort of way where I could like get him aim tokens or something,
Yeah, you have to feed him aims for sure.
Yeah, and which I think is a lot of work and is expensive, but I could see it. I don't know. Again, a niche. I would never take it to a tournament. All
right, let's move on to Shores. So basically, same 4-part meandering question for Shores.
I am going to preface this with words that I never thought I would ever say. I wish comms relay still worked on Shoretroopers.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because this cast will be 2 hours otherwise.
I know.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So, what I do not want to hit, at least right now, is were Shores over nerfed?
Yes.
And I don't think so, personally. I think, but we're not talking about this right now.
No.
So, were Shores over nerfed? We can table that for another cast. And how do you feel about the comms relay change, which is now more than a year in the past?
Yeah. Wow, holy crap.
I think those are
it's a different conversation.
Fun hot take discussions.
Yeah.
What I want, what I think I'd like to make this discussion about is what we have now with shores. Like, how do you use them in an Empire list? How many do you take, etc. So purely tactics. Otherwise, we're going to be here for 2 hours.
You mean like we
Not
were
saying we
today in background chat?
Yeah.
They go hand in hand, Kyle.
No, they don't.
They don't go
because
hand in hand.
no,
because
I'm
this
on
is
Kyle on this one. Sorry.
because this is what we have, Zach, right now. This is what we have to work with. So let's go from there. Whether or not that's what we should have is a completely different discussion.
Shores are really interesting to me because, like, I think prior to the point changes they just got recently, I would think like stapling offensive push to them was something you probably should be trying to do. I think that you might not be able to afford that now because Empire list building is kind of wacky. The good thing with the changes, right, is that it pushes you from using like a 3 or 4 of shores to start and use stormtroopers and shores. So I think shores are probably like a 1 to 2 of, and you bring a 1 to 2 of mortar. Most likely 2 and 2 is probably where you want to land. I am still
Sounds perfect.
I'm still on the emplacements aren't that good train. But the whole reason you bring shores is that you can activation pad stat with the mortar, right? Like it's part of the reason. I mean, don't get me wrong, the T-21B is still a fantastic gun. Shores is still good. Like I'm not trying to really dump on shores with my previous comment. I still think that they're very, very good. They're still a very good unit. But I won't get into the reasons for that. But they're still good. I think there are two of course there's the 3-3-3 lists that you're going to have to take 3 and 3 of, right? But I think 2 shores is good for, I think, any Empire list.
So for the uninitiated, can you explain what 3-3-3 is? Because I know we've used that abbreviation before, but it's possible that those that aren't like, and closely following the competitive meta knows what that is.
It's Iden with 3 shores, 3 mortars, and then 3 ISF. And I think that might be the only list that you want 3 shores and 3 mortars in, if I'm being quite frank with you. If you're bringing 3 shores and 3 mortars, the only other way I could see is maybe like a high activation, like 13 list, like 13 activation list, maybe that's like fleshed out with like E-webs or something. I don't know. But I think you don't want 3 of shores anymore, personally.
Okay. So I'm going to start it's maybe not a long rant, but I am going to talk about, there is a conception right now, I think, among a lot of the community that Empire is not so hot.
Perception.
It is a perception, and I want to. I want to be. Did I say conception? I mean,
very much out of context.
Yeah. Totally. It is a conception. No. It is a perception. Wow. They sound the same.
Something on your mind. No, never mind. Anyway,
whatever. Always. In any case, so I think the first year and a half to 2 years of this game, Empire lists were defined fundamentally by the fact that their core was above average, if not exceptional, and that it carried the list. I think in later days, we saw lists that pretty much exclusively ran 3 Shoretroopers, 3 mortars. That used to be like what you started building every Empire list ever with, because of the comms relay stuff and aggressive tactics and all that jazz. We're not going to hash out the fact that stuff has been nerfed. However, I want to be very clear that I think that the reason that most people think Empire is not so great right now is because they're trying to do what was a thing before, and I think it's catalyzed by the fact that mortars are not very good anymore, which is the bulk of the point that I'm about to get at, is that you cannot afford to bring more than 2 mortars in an Imperialist, like, period. I think that Shoretroopers, you could take 4 of them in 2 mortars, and that would be fine. I think we need to break the conception that if you take a Shoretrooper, you also have to take a mortar.
Perception.
Perception. Jeez, it is on my mind, I guess. I don't know. But, you know, I've seen a lot of lists that they use more Shoretroopers than there are mortars to great effect. And the fact of the matter is that mortars right now are eaten alive by ARC troopers. They're eaten alive by AATs. There's so many things in the game right now. They're eaten alive by Cassian and Iden with sniper rifles. Like, anything with marksman, just, like, you know, it drills them into a place where they just delete an activation. And so I think that when we're talking about Shoretroopers, we really need to be talking about, like, just the Shoretrooper unit. Because the mortar is kind of like, you know, last week we talked about the Rebel Corps and the vets, and how, like, if you take a Rebel vet, you're pretty, like, the only reason to take a vet is because you want access to the Mark II. I think that is very much not the case with Shoretroopers. You're not paying for access to the mortar. Shoretroopers are exceptional on their own, and you need to understand that fact. The only reason you're bringing a mortar is because your activation padding. That's basically it. You're just bumping your activations with it. And to kind of bring this full circle, if you are building a list that is investing substantial points in your Imperial Corps units, you need at least 5 cores, like 5-man body units, whether they are Shores, Storms, whatever. Like, you can't afford to be having mortars, like, clog up those slots, because if you only have 3 beefy units that they can shoot at, you're gonna have, like, 1 beefy unit to shoot at by the time you, like, seriously engage at range 3, which is where you need your Shores engaging at. All of that is to say, I think Shores are completely and perfectly acceptable in Imperial list building right now. I just think people really need to, like, take a step back and think about it differently, because it is not what it used to be.
So the short version there is maybe Shores are a little more like a 1-2 of, unless you're going for a very specific build like the Iden 3331.
I think generally, yeah, they're probably a 1-2 of. I think you're either. I think you can do any of it, really. I think you can go all in on Shores and take, like, 4 of them. Frankly, you know, target is still an exceptional keyword. You know,
you have to build around it.
You do, and I mean, like, I think you can target and put offensive push on all 4 of them, and you can really and you can still bump your activation count to 10. Like, the Imperial officer is dirt cheap and basically Veers at this point, right? So, like, you know, you can still do things that focus on your core units, but, you know, I mean, they're the best offensive Imperial Corps unit, like, by far. And I think they're probably, I mean, like, statistically, they're probably, I haven't looked at the math, but outside of clones, like, with aim sharing, like, Shores are still, like, the most lethal thing you can really be doing with your core units, frankly.
Yep, accurate.
Like, and I think a lot of people have forgotten that, or chosen to put it off to the side, you know.
Well, it'll come in our second part of the conversation. Like, it changes the fundamental way that the faction had been running previously. That's what it boils down to. I guess my question is, right, Kyle, and you're next to come up, and I'll spin another question onto you, right, and maybe you can back up, you know, some of the things we said, right. Is bringing a comms tech and an uplink feasible after these changes? I know you wanted to focus on the unit as is, right? So they got a little bit of a points bump. That does hurt up Shores quite a bit.
It does, although the comms tech also got cheaper. So
that's fair.
It's probably a little bit of a wash there.
Yeah.
You also now have access to Gideon, who gives you a free coordinate.
Yeah.
which I would, if you're running some kind of crazy like 4 shore build, I would strongly consider Gideon going in one of those. Just no.
So,
Mike, you're making a face at me.
I am making a face at you. I think you're taking.
Like?
I think I get where you're trying to go with this. Is that like it looks like he should synergize well in like an upshore build where you're using the HQ uplinks and you're like coordinating and stuff.
Well, I'm not even saying with HQ uplinks. I'm just saying.
Sure. Just like in a shore squad.
You get a free order.
You do. You get a free order, which you
can bounce to another shore. Yeah.
I just.
I mean,
you lose a T-21B, which is like the whole reason you're taking a shore squad in the first place. So I don't know.
Yeah, his weapon profile is significantly worse than a T-21B.
Yeah,
there's no question about that.
I don't know, and you're paying more, right? I think
it's 3 more. It's 35 versus 38.
Yeah,
you get a wound, you get courage too, but it's a much worse weapon profile.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I personally would lean towards just take the T-21B.
I mean, to be fair, out of curiosity, while we're sitting here, I did 4 Shoretroopers with the T-21B and a Snowtrooper with Gideon with 3 snipers, right? And that comes out to be 574 points. It's not terrible. That's 8 activations.
And that's 8 activations. Like
that's 8 activations right there.
And you've got no mortars.
Right. That's right. Exactly. 0 mortars.
Like you can easily just dunk a mortar in there as your 6th core unit, and you're at 9 for 40 points. So to
kind of back up what Kyle was saying, I could see the case for Gideon, just not on a Shoretrooper unit. I could see it being in like a Snowtrooper unit that we had already previously talked about, right? But you're basically doing it for the coordinate. You're not doing it to have and just the bonuses that he gets steady, right? I agree with Mike here that you don't want to put him in a Shoretrooper. If putting him in a Shoretrooper unit feels like a trap to me, personally, because you're losing the T-21B.
Yeah, that's fair. I just thought I'd throw it out there because coordinate is a good keyword. Courage 2 is nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird to say because like 2 red dice is very good still, but the T-21B is really good because of the critical, right?
I mean,
the criticals.
And 4 dice at range 4.
4 dice, range 4. Like, there's a lot of different reasons for it.
Let's think about this rationally, though. And I, Kyle, I'm going over this in my mind. Like, I've definitely thought about it. It's basically a clone, like a phase 2 with a range 3, whatever their red gun is.
DC-15.
Dice wise,
Yeah.
with aim token, with 1 aim token. I just I don't think clones. I don't. Not that we're talking about clones, but I think that's like a very comparable unit. I think you just want more dice, generally speaking. Like you've got aim tokens. That's very important. The critical is also a big deal. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it actually says a lot for the quality of the T-21B as a weapon that you're saying okay, so Gideon, you're paying 3 more points. You're getting an extra courage, you're getting an extra wound, and you're getting coordinate, which triggers the thing that Shoretroopers want to do, which is get more orders. But you're downgrading your T-21B to 2 red dice.
I mean the T-21B is the best core heavy weapon in the game. Full stop.
Down.
Yes.
Just full stop. It's not close. You can make comparisons to the Rebel DLT and stuff, but just the extra aim tokens and all that jazz, it's so good.
And the Rebel DLT is 1 less dice,
right? Which is important when you're factoring how often you're triggering critical, right?
Yeah.
So
and durability at other range shots coming back at you too.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with a T-21B, if you get 2 or 3 aim tokens on them, which is not unfeasible in an Empire list if you're triggering target and handing out stuff with electro binoculars and stuff. You can get 2 to 3 crits at range 4.
I mean,
it's.
I haven't built an Empire list in a long time, just because I don't play Empire, right? But in the middle of talking about all this, you can do an Imperial officer with aggressive tactics and binocs, right? 3 Shoretroopers with the comm stack and uplink. Another Shoretrooper, all with the T-21B, getting in a Snowtrooper unit to just kind of pile on the coordinate it, based on what we were discussing, a mortar and an E-web. Those are basically your padding of activations, and 3 strike teams, and that's 11 activations, 795. Your 3 Shoretrooper units have an extra body and uplinks. You could always work around and change points around. Maybe you don't take binocs, maybe you throw offensive push. Like, there's things you can do. But to kind of hammer it home, like, there's something there, I think. There's more there than you would think at first glance, I think. And even I have been someone that's been like, oh man, Empire's in a bad place. Like, I've been that kind of, like, on paper, it kind of looks bad sometimes. But when you look at a list like that, you're like, man, Shoretroopers can still hit like a truck when you need them to. So
what upgrades are you considering on Shores besides the obvious T21B? Well, 2-part question. First one, I think this will be easy and short. Do you ever run them naked without the T21B?
Hell nah.
Okay.
Not close.
Agreed. Let's
that was
move
rhetorical,
on.
Right?
Yeah. Well, a little bit. This is like a 101 section, so no question is a silly question, right?
I mean, so just to be clear, there are definitely people in the competitive realm that have done it. I don't think it's something you should do. I don't know. I think it worked well when arcs didn't exist. I shouldn't say worked well. It was like a thing you could do when arcs didn't exist. But the reason to do it was just to pad a bunch of activations and have a bunch of mortars in your list. And that was when mortars were like... Functionally, mortars are good when the other side of the table doesn't have something that, like, hard counters them. The issue is that, like, in the last 6 to 8 months, like, there's a lot of things that all of a sudden hard counter them. So
I wouldn't even say it's hard counter, even though hard countering is part of it. I would say that the suppressive keyword on the mortar also has lost its value too. I'm not saying that it's lost all value, but when you're shooting like a phase 2 and like a droid, like, it doesn't feel as good as you were like previously shooting other Imperials and Rebel Troopers.
So I would argue its value has increased.
Ooh.
Because if you shoot a phase 2 with a normal weapon, it does literally nothing, which is a significant downgrade from, shooting a Courage 1 unit. If you shoot a phase 2 with a mortar, you still have a good chance to do 2 suppression, which means you're actually costing them an action, unlike shooting them with a normal weapon. The value of suppressive goes up when your opponent has more high courage units relative to weapons that don't have suppressive.
I agree. The issue is that
they have arcs backing them up, I guess.
Right, is that
clearly.
if you're shooting phase 2s, that also means that your mortars are dead.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, but I don't think it has anything to do with the suppressive keyword decreasing in value, because I don't think that's happened.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Are you taking... So let's talk about upgrades besides the T21B. What, if any, upgrades besides the T21B are you taking on these guys?
Well, comms tech and uplink, which we've discussed, is potential. I could see maybe a medic in certain lists, right? And officer shores are really, really good too. I think there's options there. It depends on your list makeup. Offensive push, if you want to be greedy and go for aims, which, I mean...
They're pretty good with aims.
Yeah, why not? Again, I think it really... This is a hard question because it really depends on play style, the list that you're trying to go for, and it's a tough question. I think there's a lot more options there that meets the eye, I think.
Yeah, I think the one upgrade that you didn't talk about that I would like to add to the list is targeting scopes. That is the name.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Targeting scopes.
Yep.
Which increases the value of your aim tokens, which the value of your aim tokens is already pretty high because you're generally rerolling black dice. So to reroll an additional black die every time you spend an aim token is pretty good. I think that generally speaking, you want to be aim token stacking with these. if you get 2 to 3 aim tokens on a shore unit, like it's not that different than a phase 2 Z6 shot backed up by a bunch of shared aims. Frankly, it's not.
It's just low. It's lower ceiling.
It's
right?
got a. I think it does have a lower ceiling technically, but I also
just
think
because of dice volume, straight up.
But generally, it also has access to less aim tokens, right?
Right.
But you also need less aims to hit that ceiling.
That is very fair, right? So, it's not quite a phase 2 shot backed up with a bunch of aim tokens, but this is also something you can do 2 to 3 times a turn, right? So and that's not something that you can do super reliably with clone Z6 shots. So I mean, there's some trade-offs there, and you do have to recover offensive push and stuff, but these are lethal first strike units, and you should build them as such most of the time. If you're not looking to build a lethal first strike unit with a Shoretrooper, you should probably be taking Stormtroopers. And we can talk about why that is once we get to Storms. But I think that you want to be trying to do as much damage as possible and truck someone at range 3 the instant you get there. That's your plan if you're playing Shoretroopers. So lean into it.
On that note, what about recon intel?
Recon's become one of those things where it's just like if you got the points, yeah. I remember building lists a while back. You'd always want to be reconning, but I don't think it's necessary. Not as necessary as it used to be. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I think the fact that bids are so important nowadays means that you'd rather have an extra 2 points for your bid than taking recon intel. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a way because it's most deployments. There are a significant percentage of the deployments where you basically start range 4 almost exactly away from your opponent. And recon intel lets you kind of do that move shoot range 3 on the first turn where you wouldn't otherwise be able to. But
yeah, I'm not saying that there isn't value in it. I think there probably.
But you gotta be greedy with your points.
It's like it's a straight up luxury item, right?
Yeah, if you got the extra points, why not?
Yeah.
All right, let's hit Storms. Last but not least, DLT's cheaper.
It is. The DLT is cheaper. That is accurate.
Storms are interesting. And this really rolls into the next conversation a little bit. But for context, right? Mike sent the list earlier, and the core is beefed up with Stormtroopers, and I actually think that fundamentally that might be the way to go. And this is somewhat of a trend, I think, for the Civil War factions. Kyle, we discussed precast. You've been playing Captain Rebels, and I even brought up bringing extra Rebel bodies into units. So it's not just the captains or the specialists, it's also the extra bodies. And I think the reason for that is because 1, ARC troopers, and 2, droids. You need to, 1, be able to take chip damage and not feel the wrath. 2, you need dice volume to deal with droids. So it does with both of those, right? And intrinsically, Empire and Rebels can kind of deal with each other, right? They always have been, right? They've always been in the same, I don't want to say the same level of play, but they're in the same realm, right? It's figuring out how to deal with the new factions and what's the best way to do it. And I think that Stormtroopers are a case like the Rebel Troopers, where bringing extra bodies is definitely more viable now. I think that their weapons are not as cut and dry. I do think that the RTC 97 is RTC 97, is that the actual?
I think it's RT 97C.
Or is it RT 97C? I do think the RT 97 is probably the way I would go if I was playing Stormtroopers, because 1, you're throwing dice at range 4, and clones can't shoot dice at range 4, and droids typically, the core's not throwing dice at range 4 nowadays, right? So I would probably, and I know that the DLT is range 4, but the dice pool is kind of right? But I do think there's a case for the DLT too, and I think that Storms are in a better position than people think. I Storms are like I can't be like, hey, take 1 or 2 of Storms. I think there's ways you could bring 3 of Storms and 4 of Storms and 5 of Storms and maybe go balls into the wall and take 6 Storms, right? I do think that Storms are the flexible core unit of the faction. You can kind of take them as you go. I would bring them naked. I would bring the DLT. I would bring the RT. I don't know if I'd bring the T21. I guess Critical 2 is good, but like, I think I would rather the range of the RT versus or the DLT versus the T21. But I do think there's merit to what Mike was building, and we can get to that a little bit after this. And what that was beefing up the core to deal with certain things. And I do think Storms are in a better place than people think.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that Storms are, I'm not going to say a great place, but I think that they're in basically the same place that Rebel Troopers are. People just don't know it yet. They're cheap. You can take 6 of them for roughly 400 points with heavies. It's fine. I think that Storms... So, I think it's hard to have this discussion without talking about what we're going to talk about next. So can we just talk about both of them?
It goes hand in hand. That's the issue. Like, okay. It goes together.
So
yeah, this is why we're talking about both these topics on the same episode.
Yeah. So
the list basically spurned the whole like train of thought, really, right?
So I think, and you feel free to like kind of throw in here, guys, wherever you see fit. We have seen over the past 6 months to 8 months that the Clone Wars factions have really, particularly from a core unit perspective, really outshined the original Civil War factions. A lot, and I think that after we had talked, and after being in the meta and playing hundreds of games, I'm pretty convinced that it's got nothing that I'm not going to say nothing to do, but the primary reason the core units are generally better is the fact that they ignore suppression a lot of the time. Droids just flat out, unless they're panicking, they're doing whatever they want. And Clone Phase 2 lists are also generally doing whatever they want a large majority of the time. Courage 2 on a core trooper is huge. And
I think we've said it several times. It's like almost having like special forces in the course.
Oh, absolutely.
I think Kyle has said that like several times.
Yeah. And so, we've talked kind of at length about Rebel Troopers taking captains to do the vigilant situational awareness thing. And we've definitely talked about the suppression ignoring mechanic, but I think up until this point, maybe much to Kyle's chagrin, we have swept the suppression ignoring mechanic part of it. Kind of, we haven't talked a ton about it. And I think that it's important. And I think that when we're starting to talk about Stormtroopers, it's further important. And I think that the captains for the Rebels and Imperials both synergize greatly with what their factions core units are trying to do, right? So the whole vigilant situational awareness thing combos super well with the whole nimble dodge token thing, and a captain with offensive push in a Stormtrooper unit works very well with precise, right? And the issue with Stormtroopers up until this point is that if you get a suppression token on them, it's really tough to do anything relevant with them. And that's really fundamentally been the issue with Stormtroopers, and why one of the reasons Shoretroopers were such a thing was because you could consistently strict orders a suppression off them if they got hit. Or you put officers in the shores and you could do it at Courage too, right? And Storms have a cheap, efficient way to do that now in the captain. And I think that is very important. It's also like super not unreasonable to take like 5 Storms with captains, offensive push, and RTCs, and like it really doesn't cost that much. Like, you know,
And like, let's put it in perspective. You're adding another body that adds another die to the dice pool. It also adds another die, another body from being chipped away. You're adding an aim token, and you're adding in the suppression mitigation that you're discussing. So like, you're doing a multitude of different things, all for cheaper than what the other. So like in perspective, if you brought a medic, you get 2 charges. You're basically saving a couple wounds here or there, right? You're doing that for cheaper by bringing the captain because you're adding a wound effectively, right? If you bring a Imperial officer, right, to bring courage 2. Sure, courage 2 is good, but the officer costs more points, and you don't ignore suppression, right? It gives you courage 2, whereas the captain can just straight up ignore it, and you're not getting that extra aim token from offensive push. Like I really didn't think of it that way until you posted this list. And again, we keep on alluding to it. Like, it spurned the conversation we had. Like, when you posted the list, I was like, there's something to this and it needs to be explored. And sure, it's not the same thing that Empire's done in the past, which you would always bring core, but you wouldn't beef them up and you wouldn't do certain things with them. But it comes to a point where you have to fundamentally change how you play the game because you're trying to change the effects that have been happening to the faction recently.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing that maybe this does that we haven't hit on yet is that because you're building Stormtrooper units that are effective when you need them to be and offensively capable so that they're actual units that do things. They don't need order tokens though, which is super important because Empire lists, whether people really want to acknowledge it or not, really need to be giving their orders to their hitters, right? Whether they be Iden or Vader or Bosk or Palpatine or whomever, all of the Empire characters are super selfish when it comes to order tokens. They are not Rebel characters that are just like, here, have some order tokens, right? And so, if you're not playing Krennic or Veers, which frankly in the current meta, they're like wannabe Rexes, right? Like they've got they do decent things, but like they can't actually fight. And
yeah,
which is important. You need your characters to be able to do things nowadays. Otherwise, they need to be dirt cheap. And so, I think you need Bosks, and I think you need Operative Vaders. And I think the issue that we've had up to this point was that Shoretroopers were like, I need orders to be effective, right? And beefed up Stormtroopers allows you to sort of create these units that are very similar to Shores, frankly, in effectiveness and cost, and still take Bosk and have him be order hungry, which is important.
Yeah, because that's what your list had. It had Bosk in it, and you look at the list and you're like,
do you have it in front of you? Because I'm recording.
Yeah,
I can't have it.
Yeah, I can bring it up. But you look at and again, I keep on alluding to this. It was something that never really clicked until we started discussing it, And the list was, I gotta find it because we went to a rabbit hole. Hold on, where is it? Wow, we really did go into a rabbit hole. Here it is. It was 2 Imperial officers, both with Binox, Bosk with Hunter. Actually, it's a different one. Sorry.
I was gonna say that doesn't sound.
Yeah, no. It was so actually you got Veers into this list. You had Veers.
That's very possible.
Binox, Bosk with Hunter, Seize, and targeting scopes. So you had upgrades on both of your characters, right? And then you had 5 Stormtroopers with the RT-97C, captains, offensive pushes, and then 3 snipers. And you had an 8-point bid. So you're bringing Veers with Binox to pass out aim tokens to things that could use them, which if you haven't played RT-97Cs, they really like aim tokens. They really, really like aim tokens because you still are throwing a lot of white dice, right? You got to keep that in mind. You're throwing a lot of white dice, so the aim tokens really help, right? Seize on Bosk basically allows you for like the the coordinated fire turn, really, or other, this, I guess there's, some other cases where you want it, but like the turn that you can't be selfish with Bosk, you have that opportunity to put an order on him, right? And you can choose to go last with him, which is what Bosk wants to do. I think the most important thing about this list is that you need to understand that like Bosk is still fragile. I do think Bosk has a better place in the meta than people are giving him credit for. And that's for another discussion when we talk about Imperial operatives. I'm only really discussing it now because we're discussing this list specifically, right? But like Bosk also plays into what the list is doing, right? You have all sorts of range 4 and 5 weapons. You have maximum firepower with Veers, which, yeah, I know maximum firepower is really not as good as it used to, but it's still a thing. You still have things that, and it's not just about clones, right? But like you have things that can hit clones from range that they can't fire back with except for ARC troopers, right? And like to take that clanker's turn. But after that, their Z6s have to come into range 3. And that's really where RTCs actually shine, right? Like if like RTCs are like at like exactly range 4 and the clones have to enter range 3 and then you enter range 3 with your captains, you're tapping offensive push, you're getting binocs on them, you're doing things to give them the aim tokens that they need to hit beefier units with a lot of good, a lot of dice that you can kind of manipulate with precise, right? I don't know. I just think that it was a list that like shows that like there is a way to do what you've done in the past, but intrinsically change it all at the same time. Because that's what you need to do. Empire's in this spot where Empire used to be the faction that would aim and shoot, right? And right now there are other factions that gunline a little bit better than they do. So they need to kind of manipulate how they do it. And I thought that this list was interesting because like you said, it allows Bosk, or let's say it was Operative 8 or whatever, like to be selfish, but you have the backup where the captain can kind of control what happens to you, right? And that's important for Empire, I think. It's something I'm interested in seeing explored. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of an analog to the Rebel Captain setup, except you're taking offensive push instead of situational awareness, and you're leaning into aim tokens and precise instead of dodges and nibble. Now, whether that's as good or not, I think is an open question. It's certainly less vulnerable to like high velocity. You get your beef from your red saves instead of from dodge tokens. Otherwise, it's a relatively comparable unit, offensively speaking. It doesn't hit quite as hard as like a DLT captain does, but if you can get it aims, it's pretty close. So, yeah, I think it's potentially interesting. I do think I would love to see Bosk on the, Bosk is still my favorite bounty hunter. I would love to see him on the table again. I do think there's also some, not just talking specifically about beefy storms, but I think there's some room to play with Seize the Initiative. And, Mike talked about Empire players not wanting to think like Rebel players, that their focus pieces need orders. Well, Seize kind of lets you get around the previous issues with like double bounty and other multi-character lists. You could probably make some crazy like Iden, Bosk, Boba Fett lists with Seize the Initiative on everybody and a bunch of naked stormtroopers that weren't that bad. That's a lot of Pierce. Those are 3 characters that are all good characters. It's kind of like a faux Rebel hero spam list. I think you could probably do something like that. I haven't personally tried it. I would still probably run something like what Mike posted with, Veers, Bosk, a bunch of beefy storms and strike teams, because that's my style. But yeah,
Especially ones that hit at range 4. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I do think that like, if you just take like take a bunch of storm DLTs, like you're gonna be disappointed in what they're doing. Like, and I think that's kind of where we end up with this perception that Imperial Core is kind of like faded because people feel like they have to take these core units that like you've got to be intentional with your core units now. Like that's kind of what it comes down to, right? You have to be very intentional with what you're doing with them, and you've got to specialize them, and you've got to play them a little bit more like special forces, and equip them. And I'm not sure that's a bad thing per se. It's definitely different, right? It's not how the game started or used to be, but we live in a world where we're super like you need good dice pools. You can't get away with a core unit taking a shot and doing no damage, really. Like that's a way to lose a game these days. When you step up and like take a shot with a core unit, you need to know that you're gonna do something.
Essentially really it boils down to like your margin of error is so minimal now. Like really it boils, like everything that we discuss, you don't realize it, but like the common denominator when you like if you were to like break down everything we've said the past 2 weeks about these core units is that like their margin of error previously was probably like up here, we'll call it, right? And now their margin of error is like down here. Like one simple mistake or like missed shot by your core unit could ultimately cost you more than it did previously. I mean, don't get me wrong, Legion, just like sports, and we discussed this about baseball, football, hockey, it's about who makes a mistake, right? Or a mistake happens, whether it's a dice mistake or an actual mistake, it's one thing or another, right? But like a mistake could literally determine the game, and that margin of mistake is like down here as opposed to where it was previously, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, like, I remember in, like, the original days of Legion, we would, like, be trading, like, DLT storm shots against, like, Rebel Z6 shots, and literally, like, just, sometimes you just, like, the shots would bounce, and you'd be like, oh, that's okay. Like, but nowadays...
I put a suppression down, that's fine.
Right, I put a suppression down, like, no big deal. These days, like, because the suppression is really not fundamentally, kind of to Kyle's point, like guns without suppressive, like don't really suppress core units anymore, which is important. You need to do damage in order to make it effective. Like before, you could be like, I'm going to shoot that unit and I'm going to give it a 66% chance that it can't move and shoot me, which makes me safe, right? Or whatever. You can't really do that anymore. And because of that, you need to kill things in that unit in order to reduce its viability to protect yourself. And you can do that with vigilance or situational awareness, or you can do it with aim tokens. It's up to you, but I think that this is the way the meta is shifting.
Yep, agreed.
You're quiet, Kyle. You're suspiciously quiet.
So there's two reasons for that. One, I agree with most everything that you guys have said. Two, I haven't personally like tested a lot of this Empire stuff, so I feel less. I have definitely been an Empire player. My only Invader League titles with Empire. I won Nova Open with Empire. Arguably, it's been my best competitive faction. But recently I have not been playing them, so I don't feel as qualified to like meaningfully contribute to this discussion other than theory crafting, which is not as useful.
I have played a total of one game as an Empire.
I'm just saying.
I think that, it's important to keep in mind that like we know what the effectiveness of a unit with offensive push and name token and stuff like that.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. So I think it's a good concept. I think mostly I just agree with you guys. Like I'm actually strongly considering playing Empire. This episode's not going to release until Wednesday, right? I'm strongly considering playing Empire for my next Invader game, which is on Tuesday night.
Generally I've been releasing them Wednesdays, so I think you'll be okay. I'll hold it just for you, Kyle.
Okay, thank you.
Post it tomorrow. Make them sweat.
Yeah, mostly because for surprise factor. I don't know how super necessary that is. I'd love to. It's been a while since I played Pelpin seriously. I still love Pelp. I still think he's great. I have yet to use him in a tournament with Barrier.
Yeah, Barrier makes a huge difference.
He's cheaper. So, We'll see. I'm intrigued. This discussion has inspired me, I guess you could say, to potentially get Palper Bosk back on the table, because those have been my Empire boys in the past. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, seriously, like the list, like I think Mike posted the list and I don't think he expected like the rabbit hole we went into, but here we are like 12 hours later discussing on the cast. It's interesting. I kind of want to see it unfold.
I mean, and I just like, we've kind of been alluding to it, but I think a lot of Empire players are not loving where the faction is at in the game, and maybe there's merit to that, maybe there's not. But I gotta say, man, from someone who watches a lot of Star Wars Legion and is involved in the community and is watching everything, y'all are not playing Bosk enough. like I don't know what to say other than the fact that Bosk is not in like 70 to 80% of Empire lists says like build your list differently. I don't know. He's just seriously he's like I still think he's one of the best units in the game. He's amazing. He's one of I don't know. He's got the suppressive that shuts down the units that like putting a boss shot at range 4 into a phase 2 is still like really good.
Surge crit pierce suppressive, it's really good.
Not to mention if you ever get to Dioxis a clone ball, like
it's magical.
like
yeah,
it's just like it's like winning the lotto, and I'm not saying that like you're gonna do that every game, but sometimes like you get a good line of sight blocker and like sorry dudes, but you're taking a Dioxis charge if you want to take this key position, like, and I don't know, I mean like,
and it does like 10 to 15 wounds when that happens.
Yeah, I mean if you hit 6-7 phase 2s and arcs and wrecks with the Dioxis charge, like stuff's gonna die, like a lot of stuff's gonna die, and I don't know. It's just like in a meta that emphasizes long range pierce so heavily, the fact that we have seen basically no Bosk these days just blows my mind. Yeah,
I'm with you. Like we talked recast. Like I don't know. There's been like a shift in this podcast where I used to be like agreeing with Dad here a lot, but now I'm starting to agree with Mike a lot now, and I agree with you on this one. Like I think Kyle agrees. I think Kyle agrees as well, though. So
Bosk is my boy. You're never gonna be able to. I mean, if you're gonna say good things about Bosk, I'm gonna agree with you. So, all right. Well, you guys got any final thoughts?
Yeah. I hope that Mike or Kyle can prove me wrong, and well, hopefully they both get the single eliminations and they can prove me wrong that Empire is in a better spot, because I still need to see it to believe it. I do think that this conversation has got me into a better position where I think that there's more room to play, but I want to be proven. I want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the battle is not uphill, to be clear.
Yeah,
but yeah. I do think that the lists that I've been seeing for Empire, like, are nowhere near optimal. Like you gotta, I don't know. They're not nearly focused enough. And
they have to evolve. They have
to
change from what they were previously.
You can't take like 5 measly core units, some snipers, and like a couple dudes, and like expect to win anymore. You've got to focus your units and specialize your units. That's literally what all the other factions are doing at this point, other than Empire. Like if Empire wants to survive, they've got to do that too, and that might mean taking 5 specialists in your Stormtroopers, like so.
I will say, and I know we touched on this briefly, but I don't want to reinforce that Empire can still do cheap red saves better than anyone else.
Oh, absolutely.
Totally.
I mean,
totally.
You can. I think that if you wanted to, you can still take a bunch of like Storm DLTs and snipers and like Commander Vader with some IRG and like or Palpatine is probably a better choice, but like you can still do that, and it's okay, you know.
Yeah, and even the beefy version with the captain, you're talking about the captain offensive push and RT 97 for 86 or DLT for 82. That's a good 10 points cheaper than a phase 2 for 6 red save bodies.
And the offense is like not that far away from it, frankly.
If you set aside aim sharing.
Yeah.
But in like a normal situation where they're just kind of slugging it out without, stacking aims on a particular specific phase 2, then yeah, it's actually not that far different.
I mean, realistically, if you can hit a storm unit with a unit with spotter and trigger O push, that's effectively 3 aim tokens. Even though it's only 2, like it's the equivalent of a clone having access to 3 aim tokens, right? Because they're only rolling 2 every time, unless they did some scopes thing, but they don't really do that these days.
No.
So I don't know. I hope some Empire players are inspired and take heart. This is not the end of the world. And if for whatever reason it ends up being the end of the world, Agent Callus is coming to save you.
Yep. He is in the future. We know very little about him except that he has amazing sideburns. But perhaps that will be sufficient enough to save the Empire. Just for posterity, real quick, I'm briefly stalling because I'm a little bit curious. Okay. So if you had to guess, just back of napkin ballpark, what is the average hits for a RT-97 extra body with 3 aim tokens?
With 3 aims?
Yeah.
And just to clarify, to remember myself, it's 3 white die and a red die for RT-97.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're throwing
8 white die and a red.
8 Y and a red. 3 aim tokens rerolling. It's probably like 6.5. It's higher? Really? That's pretty freaking good.
Yeah. I'm not like making this up.
It's 7. 7 hits.
Holy
and that, as Mike said, that is not super difficult to set up. 2 aims is 6 hits. So that's pretty good.
Cover, I mean,
that's good.
I don't know. That's yeah. So take that for what it's worth. But
7.
I mean, yeah, dude, it's they're pretty good. If you get them aim tokens,
it's not hard.
Here's the thing that people forget is that Stormtroopers with aim tokens have always been good. The issue is that we have not been able to take the aim action very often lately.
Yeah, totally.
And so I think just you need aim tokens is what it comes down to. This is how you get aim tokens. Kill things, friends.
Definitely.
So here's a question. For 4 points cheaper, would you consider the specialist over the captain? If you think about it, that the suppression ignoring effect of the captain gives you an extra action, and very often your extra action is going to be to take the aim action.
I think that it is. So, it is
the
less
thing you can't do there
because
is
you cannot move to engage range and do all of those things, right? And
that's the thing you can't do is move shoot.
Right, and I think that is sort of important.
And I think the list proves that you don't actually need those extra 4 points because you're still bringing an 8-point bid and a lot of things in the list, right?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's probably merit to it. I just the stand shoot, I think is less good. I think you want to be engaging and firing. I think that offensive push and not having to tap the captain is really good too, right? Because the thing about offensive push is it allows you to move, aim, shoot if you're not suppressed, and then on a later turn you can stand your ground and shoot with the captain, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of can if you're lucky, you double dip with it. Whereas with the specialist you can't. So
yeah, that's true.
I think the captain is far more flexible, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It definitely, and that's why that combo's 4 more points per
right,
unit.
and I think that it's probably worth the 4 points. Frankly, if you're able to utilize it twice, I think it's important.
Yep. Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there. All right. Well, we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Mike.
I'm Marty McFly.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. It took me a second. Because you didn't actually call me Doc Brown once, like you said you were going to.
No, once we went into conversation, I forgot, so.
Yeah. All right. Stay fresh, cheese bags.